Duke and Duchess of Sussex, along with Meghan's mother, Ella Whelan, have been involved in what they described as a near-catastrophic car chase after being pursued by paparazzi in New York. And I'm joined by my political panel, writer Paul Burke and columnist Ella Whelan. Thank you both for coming. Obviously, this is the shock story of the day. The first thing to say is, luckily, they're unharmed. So is Meghan's mother. They're all fine. And so are all the paps, all the police, all the pedestrians, all the other drivers and everybody else en route. So luckily, there have been no casualties and there have been no terrible disasters. However, Ella, I'm sure this must have ignited a raft of memories and triggers for Harry.
Well, yes, and you don't want to sound unsympathetic. Obviously, what happened to his mother was a tragedy and isn't something that should be repeated. On the other hand, you do get the feeling that Harry and Meghan believe themselves to be the only celebrities that have ever existed. And there are, paparazzi do act in this way after award ceremony. They do have security. There is a process for this. I mean, as much as you can believe what you read on the internet, I have seen a lot of people saying it's quite difficult to get into car chases in New York, that kind of thing. So there's, the skeptic in me says near catastrophic car chase. Is that really what happened? But who knows? We weren't there. But this is a couple that somehow always manages to find themselves, despite wanting to profess themselves as being dedicated to privacy, find themselves in the headlines. And I might sound like a terrible person saying that, but I think it's probably what most of us are thinking.
Let's bring Paul into this. Do you feel similarly about it?
Yeah, there is only the sceptic in me with this one. I'm glad they're not hurt. Of course, nobody wants anything to happen to them, especially given what happened to Diana. But again, we've all been, but we've all been to London. It's almost impossible to have that sort of incident going on for that amount of time in New York. And the other thing is, why didn't they just stop? What are they running away from?
I have been asking this for nearly 3 hours now. I
Yeah.
mean, I really have felt, and I'm not Meghan, I'm not Harry, I'm not Angelina Jolie, but I have had a few altercations with paps myself, in fact, some fairly recently. And, if you don't want to be part of a chase, you just don't get chased. You either stop, which you can do, pull over. They were in an SUV with a full security team. You don't have to participate in the chase. That's one thing.
They just could have got out and been nice to everyone and said, hello,
You could stop and get out, but that's obviously exactly what they didn't want to do. But you could stop, or you could just drive very slowly, observing the speed limit in the slow lane, and you don't have to be chased. No. Do you? I mean, it's kind of it is an optional thing. The other thing that strikes me about it is that normally when you're trying to avoid or evade the paps, it's for a reason, like you're with someone you shouldn't be with, or maybe this is a bit autobiographical, no, just joking, but you're with someone you shouldn't be with, or you're doing something that you don't want to see them, you don't want them to see you doing with someone you shouldn't be doing it with, or you're going somewhere you shouldn't be going because you're on the run from something, and but they had just been very, very publicly at this huge ceremony, being lavishly photographed on the way in, massively filmed while they were there, hugely photographed on the way out. They had her mother with them, for God's sake, so they certainly weren't doing anything they shouldn't have been doing. So why, Paul, the tremendous desire to be chased and escape and evade? I don't really get it at all.
I think we're answering our own question. We're 3,000 miles away on a major television station, and we're talking about it.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm not saying it didn't happen, I wasn't there, I'm speaking on a platform of ignorance from that sort of angle, but that's what they seem to want. And if that's the case, that's what they've achieved.
I mean, I'll just read you this. This is from the New York Police Department. This relentless pursuit lasting over 2 hours resulted in multiple near collisions involving other drivers on the road. Well, that's what the spokesperson said. But the NYPD said something very different. They said on Wednesday evening, the NYPD assisted the private security team protecting the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. There were numerous photographers that made their transport challenging. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex arrived at their destination and there were no reported collisions, summonses, injuries, or arrests.
It'll be on camera, won't it? I mean,
so they were pretty understated about it, weren't they?
When Diana was killed, I mean, the roads were very different. Was it 27 years ago, 26 years ago?
Very different. Raining. It was
raining, and there weren't the cameras around. Paris is easier to drive around than New York, so it's just very, very different. I know there are echoes of it in what they say happened, but I'm not sure.
I think the thing about Harry and Meghan is that they want to have their cake and eat it in a way, which is that they want to have the public attention when they go to these award ceremonies. They certainly want to, make some kind of quasi-career out of public attention. They have, whether it's the sort of latte brands or whatever it is, to the Netflix programmes and all the rest of it. They want the fame, but they want the fame on their terms. And I'm afraid that's just not how this game works, which is that if you are in the business of gaining public attention, then paparazzi are going to follow you. And either, as you say, either you're sensible about it and don't, risk crashing into other people, New Yorkers who are just going about their business, or and you're sensible about it, or you do what I think is sort of potentially happening here, which is that this couple constantly find themselves as the victims of a certain scenario. Occasionally, that's probably extremely, absolutely legitimate, but a lot of the time, it feels like you're, being played. And as Paul says, it ends up with those of us around the world who are meant to be talking about other political issues that are important, talking about this couple yet again being victimised by something.
Paul, one thing obviously is that Prince Harry is fighting through the courts right now for the right to a certain sort of security detail in this country. And, we all know that he wanted to pay members of the Metropolitan Police to be his bodyguards. And this is still an ongoing situation. And also, as far as he's concerned, a running sore that he hasn't been given the security that he's had all his life, given that he is a prince of the realm. Whether he's a working one or not, he still is one, and he can never not be Prince Harry, whatever he decides to do. I think lots of people have some kind of sympathy for him in this, that he wants to keep his family safe, he wants to be safe himself.
Then pay for it yourself.
Well, I think but he wanted to pay
Netflix.
British police officers to come and guard him.
Well, they're not. They're servants of the public. They're here to protect us, not him.
Yes.
There are lots and lots of private security firms that he can pay for. And I do understand why, because he'll always be famous, he'll always be Prince Harry. But pay for it yourself, put your hand in your pocket. Didn't mind taking Netflix's millions and all the money from his autobiography, which is his business, but don't expect us to pay for your
So you feel
security.
as if this is you feel as if this is a kind of a story that are you saying kind of exacerbated by them, kind of enhanced by them?
Just somehow we always end up talking about this couple. I mean, it's like, there are so many more celebrities, whether it's in the Kardashians who are like more entertaining, or actors, actresses who are more talented, who have something more interesting to say. I mean, it's in some ways ironic that we're still talking. Harry has just had an incredible amount of bad press for Spare because of whether it's the kind of lurid details of it or the fact that a lot of it did play on this kind of victim narrative that made a lot of people cringe. And yet they're still at award ceremonies and, making speeches that, as I've read, some reviews are pretty toe-curling themselves, what Meghan said. And it somehow seems to still make the headlines on the basis of having a bad driver at the head of their security team. It is just pretty tiresome. I think even their fans, I'm no fan of the royals. In fact, a lot of the bad press that Harry and Meghan get for the royal family, I think at least allows for a discussion about the future of the monarchy. But even their fans, I think, are having their patience tested.
All right, final word to Paul Burke, and then after the break we will move on. I assure you won't have to discuss them again, Ella. Not today, at any rate, probably tomorrow. Paul, final word. I
just think, what were the paps? It just doesn't ring 100% true. Why were the paps chasing after them at that speed anyway? Why didn't they stop? Why didn't the paps? We're going to get nicked. We might kill someone for what? It just doesn't ring true. Hopefully it's all on camera, and hopefully we'll get to the truth. If it is the truth, I apologise, but if it isn't, we'll have a laugh.
Well, the truth can't be that they had to drive around for an hour and a half because they didn't want to get found. They didn't want their final location to be discovered. That really does seem absolutely absurd. I really don't get that at all. Drive around at colossal risk to yourself and everybody else anywhere near the vicinity because you don't want the paps to find out where you're staying overnight, even though you've been roundly papped and photographed and filmed and you're on camera for hours that night. That really doesn't add up at all.
Doesn't.
Whole thing is a very peculiar story, but that's only our view and not necessarily the view of Talk TV. I don't know. We don't know. Okay, listen, that's all we're going to say about this.